This is Two Peas on a Pod. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Alejandro.
And we dive deep into revealing and judgment-free conversations about the journey of entrepreneurship and the realities of launching a successful product. We discuss what making it truly means in this highly competitive world of CPG. And today we have Erica Rankin.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Erica launched BroDough 2019 and has accumulated 32,000 followers on LinkedIn, and it's growing every day. I'm sure it's even more by the time that this is posted, and 200,000 on TikTok. I definitely think this is because Erica is one of the most authentic and honest entrepreneurs out there. She's a hustler, and she's shared every moment of her journey from starting in her own kitchen and now the pains and gains of scaling. Right now, you're in a manufacturing facility and you have US expansion on the horizon. So that's super exciting. Welcome, Erica.
Thanks for the very kind intro. Been a grind. Recently started scaling the company, and it's a whole new learning curve, which is super exciting.
I think that we can all agree as entrepreneurs that we went into this not knowing what it was gonna look like or what entrepreneurship looks like. We had an idea that it might have been like a difficult journey. Did you, in your experience, have an idea originally of what that might look like, or did you kind of like just sort of like, okay, I know that it's gonna be hard, I'm just gonna do it anyway? What inspired you to create BroDough, and were you aware that how difficult it would be to start your own business?
I had no idea. And I think every entrepreneur needs to be a bit naive, because I feel like if you know everything, you're not going to want to pursue whatever it is, right? Like if you knew all of the difficulties and all of the hoops you had to jump through to get where you wanted to go, you'd be like, nah, it's not worth it. I'm not doing it. 2019, I just got really sick of working for other people. Like prior to owning my business, I worked at a bakery. I was doing personal training. I worked at a university doing research as a research assistant. And I was doing all these 3 jobs at once and was killing myself and making no money. And I guess that kind of led me to wanting to build my own life and do something that was more fulfilling. And I honestly just started it. I didn't know what to expect. I was like, okay, I'm just going to make cookie dough and see what happens and take it one day at a time, which is really good. Like, I think people should approach entrepreneurship that way. You should take things one day at a time and like, quote unquote, win the day. But at the same time, I wish that I thought about like long-term, what it would look like how would I commercialize it? How would I scale it? Because by the time I got there, I didn't really know what to do, and it took way longer. Better For You Foods, like, been super passionate about it. Love the space. Like, I've over the past years, like, I've grown to like love the people in the space, love the mission, everything about the industry. I've just like fallen in love with it, and the passion is what keeps me going. Because obviously, like, don't really make a lot of money in CPG. For those of you who are familiar with it, it's not a very profitable industry at the beginning. It's kind of like a delayed gratification play. So you have to
like a lot of businesses though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is a delayed gratification for sure.
It's like a huge learning experience. And even if you like, quote unquote, fail or whatever, things don't go the way you anticipated, like, it's not a total loss. Like, think of all the knowledge. Like, I don't know about you, but like the past 2 years of like owning a business, I feel like it's like 50 years worth of school. Like, I feel like I've learned way more in the past 2 years than I have my entire like childhood, high school, like university, like post-secondary education, all of that. Like, because it's just it's so much more different when you're like hands-on and doing everything yourself, and like you're forced to learn because
you're forced to fail, right? And then you learn so fast. It's like
Erica, skip high school to start a business. Is that what you're saying?
Basically, I mean, I would skip post-secondary. Like, if I could go back in time and do one thing differently, like, I know everyone says like go to like university, like have a university experience, whatever. I grew up very introverted, so I didn't have like that university experience. I did in some sense, but I feel like if I jumped right into entrepreneurship or kind of figured out what I wanted to do earlier on, it would have benefited me a lot more, and I would have learned a lot more. Because like the university I went to, my classes were comprised of like 400 students, and it was like multiple choice tests, and we wouldn't even like learn. We would switch each other's tests and memorize the answers. And then so it's like,
what did you go to school for?
Psychology.
Okay. Alejandro and I met in Emily Carr. We met at art school. And it is definitely not a multiple choice test. It's probably the most subjective type of journey possible. So maybe it lent itself well to entrepreneurship. I don't know. But oh my God, that sounds hilarious. That's definitely not gonna push you. So you were just like, no, and you went a completely different direction. But I mean, business is a lot of psychology, so it probably comes in handy, no?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
good.
I don't know.
It was just like because I didn't know, right? Like I wanted to take time off before I like pursued university, and my parents were like, "No, you're gonna get lazy, and you're gonna get a job and make money, and you're not gonna come back." And I was like, well, okay, you're forcing me into university, which costs like 30 grand. And I'm very thankful that like my parents paid for my post-secondary education. Otherwise, I would have definitely not gone. I went into it because I thought like human behavior, like all of that, I love that. It's human psychology. It's really interesting and it can be built on. Like at one point I wanted to be a cop. At one point I wanted to do all these different things, and you can just, it's a degree that you can kind of like have in your back pocket and just kind of use it as a tool for whatever way you want to go. Yeah. But it's also so competitive. Like when you get spit out of school, it's like, okay, now there's like thousands of people all competing for the same job. So they're going to pay you literally peanuts, you know? Yeah, I feel like the system is a little broken.
I agree. I've been like really, now that I'm like older and like kind of understand how things work in this kind of system that we created, I'm like, is it sustainable? Like things are getting more expensive and there's, you know, like I don't think it's a sustainable pace compared to like, let's say something like our parents used to earn, like the kind of quality of life they had at the time that were our age.
No, but that's a good point because, you know, we are facing huge issues with it within your space specifically because, you know, supply chain issues and increased pricing, inflation. I mean, it affects all of us, but of course it affects you because you kind of are locked into a price when it comes to products. And you actually started your business like days before the pandemic hit. So like what a crazy journey to go on. I mean, I guess you wouldn't know, right? If it would have been easier before the pandemic or after, but have people kind of been shocked that you started it during such a challenging time?
Honestly, I think if I didn't have my business, I would be in really rough shape right now because it kept me distracted and it kept me busy. I moved like 4 times in the pandemic. I tend to move around a lot, which, you know, it is what it is. Starting my business, it kept me busy during those hard times. Like I know a lot of people struggled with like being isolated and living alone, and I got a cat because I was like, this is going to help me.
It would, right?
It did help. It helps. Yeah. But I think too, the other thing, like that was kind of a blessing in disguise. Like people were forced to like hop on Zoom calls and like communicate online. And I like made so many friends, you know, like for example, like you know, like just people I've never really met in real life. And I'm just like, hey, like want to hop on a Zoom call and have a coffee, you know, because that was like the new normal. But I mean, it definitely had its challenges, I'm sure, for everyone.
And you really grew online too, like on LinkedIn. That's what caught my eye with you too. I was just like, who is this girl that's like sharing all of this, I don't know, behind the scenes pieces of the journey that most people don't want to share. People were loving it because at that time, I feel everyone was just instantly grounded and put on the same level, right? And did you just kind of naturally start posting or did you have a strategy?
I don't really plan my content. And people like, I know there are people who are very strategic and they have spreadsheets and they have, you know, and I'm not like that. I'm kind of like, yeah, I feel like this. I'm going to put this out today. Like when I first got on LinkedIn, I literally got on there to find mentors because I didn't know how to grow my business. I took it to a certain point and then I could no longer grow it. Like my sales were kind of flatlined and I was getting burnt out and like literally didn't know how to scale my business. And that's why like I kind of touched on whenever you get into business or whatever you decide to pursue, like think of it long-term as well. So you don't hit that wall and you're like frantically trying to like figure out how to grow it. But yeah, I got on LinkedIn and it was just very shiny and I was struggling a lot and it's very one-sided, like Instagram, right? Like it's like very almost like photoshopped and like people only show you the sides that they want you to see. And I remember I was like sitting in my car in my front seat and picking and packing. And like, I had my product in my trunk and it was like negative 25 degrees and like the coldest province, like I was freaking in Ottawa and it's freezing in Ottawa. And I'm driving around and like, I was just doing some crazy stuff. And I was like, is this normal? Like, do other people do weird shit like this when they start?
Everyone else has a Porsche on LinkedIn. What's going on? And a private jet.
I know. And I'm like, I was just like doing really weird stuff and like picking and packing at night and then like storing my orders on my porch in the winter, you know, like it was just so weird to me. And like, I felt like I wasn't doing anything right. And then even the challenges with like, manufacturing and ingredient sourcing and all of that. Like I just felt like I didn't know what I was doing and I wasn't doing it the right way. So I started having calls with other entrepreneurs. I know there's no right way to do anything. It's your way. There's no cookie cutter approach. But I started having calls with other entrepreneurs and they would tell me about all the crap they went through. And I was like, well, how come you're not talking about it? Like, how come you're perceiving things as one way and showcasing it as one way? And then in actuality, like there's something else completely different going on behind it. Even for example, recently, like there is a brand and it looks like they're doing really well and they're doing millions of revenue a year, but they're spending 6 figures a month on paid marketing and they almost lost business. Like, you know, there's just like, and that wasn't posted about. That was just something that I found out through someone. Right. So you never know what goes on behind closed doors, right?
Absolutely. And Alejandro and I actually scaled too quickly too. And then we had to go back a bit.
At the beginning of our business, I mean, Rebecca didn't pay herself for like I want to say like a year. And then I was getting really like minimum wage. So I was like, I was buzzing at a club for the first like 2 years of our business and working during the week, you know, like trying to build our business. And I think that something that a lot of people don't know is like how that also affects your personal life and your relationship with others and the amount of time that you can spend with your friends and building relationships. And I guess it's a great way of like talking about our next question, which is like, you know, how have you adapted in terms of like your relationship with others and jumping into this entrepreneurship world?
Like fitting in a life.
Yeah.
That's funny too, because the past few weeks I've just been saying to myself, now that the weather's warmer, I'm just like, I want my life back. And it's kind of sad. And I know you guys get it, but like we signed up for this and it's just, it does suck, especially like giving up your weekends to like be in stores doing demos when it's beautiful outside, standing on your feet like for 8 hours, like trying to get feedback from customers and working late at night. And some of my friendships have taken a hit. But I think the people who like love you and support you, like they understand and they're going to know like what it takes and they're going to respect you. And those are the people that you want to keep around. Those who don't understand it, they're not the people you want in your circle. And sadly, I had to let go of a lot of friendships that really weren't serving me, weren't reciprocated in a way. And I think, you know, like, I feel like as you progress through life and like whatever you do at any stage, your circle is always going to change. I'm learning that now, like as much as it sucks sometimes to like let go of some people, I think every season serves its purpose, right? And people come and go for a reason. So the other thing that kind of sucks too, like I feel so bad because me and my mom used to spend so much more time together and I used to call her like every night. And now she's like, where are you? Where is Erica? And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I'm like, I'm really trying to build this company. And she gets it, but she does, I guess, sometimes hint that she wishes I was able to like be around more. It is tricky. I try to like work a certain amount of time and then have a certain amount of time just for like my mental health, you know, like I need that one day to just like breathe and like go outside and message my friends, message my parents, stuff like that. But what about you guys? What does that look like?
One day is definitely important. Like the building in that day off, I feel is very, very important. At least one day off. I think Alejandro and I are now at a stage where we're able to take weekends off, but I don't know. I mean, it depends, right? And I also would say that people don't realize the work of the mental labor of it. It's like you go to bed thinking about it, you wake up, like even if you're not working, figuring out how to turn that on and off is very, very hard. So that's another piece. But that first year, yeah, like, it's hard. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure as a woman because you are only given a certain amount of time to figure out, I mean, not really, but society kind of pushes this idea that you have a certain amount of time to like figure out your relationship side of things as well, like in terms of like finding a partner, and then also the business, and then also having this great grand social life and having people over, like, and posting pictures on Instagram that are perfect and all of these things. So I don't know, I kind of rambled on there, but definitely relate.
I think that, like you said, we're at a stage where we can take a little bit of more of our free time, but also, you know, we are creative by nature and we want to keep on creating. So we now have other side projects that we like we want to do. And I think that maybe you'll find that maybe you start delegating more of your tasks and you get to a point where you're like, hey, now I have money to delegate, maybe hire the people for stuff that I don't want to do, but then that means that you have more free time and maybe you want to put more effort into trying something new, and then all of a sudden you're busy again, but like in other stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, don't we just like, we overfill our plates, don't we?
Yeah.
It's just the type of tendency, I guess. But whenever there's a gap, you just fill it with something else. It's ton of free time. Someone told me it's like you're clearing space when those certain relationships drop off. It's like you're making space. I don't know. It seems from the outside that you've done an amazing job at finding more relationships that are like helping push you to where you want to go, right?
Yeah. I think the other thing too on top of that is just like the way that I look at relationships now, like friendships, whatever, like you have an energy bank and you only have so much energy to spend. And people are either taking energy or giving energy to you. And I felt like a lot of the people around me were taking and not giving. So I just kind of slowly I don't know, like rearranged people in my surroundings and like not necessarily cut them off completely, but just kind of like pull away a little bit more. Cause I think that's what you need to do in order to move forward and continue to pour that energy where it's going to serve you and where it's going to help you progress and flourish and be the best version of you, so to speak, as corny as it is.
Yeah, no, it is true. It is true. Would you say that the relationships that you have now are kind of like a hybrid between people that you might have met through like working or collaborating, but now it's become a friendship at the same time? Like how is that? So it's kind of good because then you have a friend who will also give you business advice, right? Or I don't know if that's how you feel, but it is funny how like, we are in groups with other entrepreneurs, and there is that like, just because we're going through the same kind of journey, you kind of automatically click, or just automatically like, I know what you're going through because I'm going through the same. I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's like, that's what makes it so nice. Cause I do have like a really close friend that I talk to. And like, when I have problems and stuff with the business, cause realistically, you don't really have two different lives. Your personal life and your business life are one, right? Like if something goes wrong with the business and it affects you personally, and like, as much as we try to like disconnect those two things, you realistically can't, right? You're immersed in it, especially as a startup founder. So like I do have those friends where I'm like, I'm really having a really bad day and like, this is what's going wrong. And they can't help me. They're like, I wish I could help you, but I don't know how. Whereas like the other friend who has a business and might not necessarily be CPG, but they get it and they're an entrepreneur, I'm like, help, I don't know what to do. And then they're like, okay, let's sit down. We're going to figure out a solution. And then you're going to leave this conversation feeling a lot better than you did going into it. So I think it's really important to have people that can help you like kind of work through your problems. And also too, like, I think we get so caught up in our day to day and we only see things a certain way. So to have like an outside perspective, I think is really important. And then you can be like, oh, actually, I didn't even think of that, or my problem's actually not really a problem. Like it's super easy to fix. Like you 100% need people around you that can kind of do that for you.
Alejandro and I had such an advantage in that regard because we started it together, right? So we could go, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Right? About every decision. And I think, there are definitely times where you can sit and it could be an email that could really take 10 minutes, if you talk to someone about it out loud, but it could take you 3 hours to respond to it if you're alone, kind of thinking of all the options and you're kind of too zoomed into your business. Have you ever had a relationship that was actively like holding you back? You have so many people rooting for you, and that must feel really good that you have that energy around you. But did you have anyone that happened to hold you back almost intentionally, or someone that you had to drop off in that way?
A whole, like kind of like a friend group that I was around, like when I started the business, who like silence also says a lot, right? Like if you're winning and people don't say anything, like it really upset me. Cause I don't know, but like, I feel like entrepreneurs, we're all rooting for each other because we know how hard it is. It's a shitstorm, right? And like, I want people around me to win. I want to win. I want my competitors to win. I want my friends to win. I want everyone to win. Like, that's just how it is. And like my friends, they were supportive at the beginning, but then when things started to like progress and like really start to grow, like they were very quiet and like they weren't really the cheerleaders that I thought they were. And it kind of like made me feel crappy to hang out with them. And I would try to make myself feel smaller around them, which is like something you should never do. Like I kind of almost felt guilty for what I was doing, which is so crazy. Like it's so silly. It's so weird. I actually hired a business coach and she's like, Erica, like you should never feel like that around your friends. Like it sucks, but like you need to kind of close this chapter. And everything kind of worked out because I ended up moving to a new city, surrounding myself with different people. And while those people are still like, they're in my network and they're my friends, but they're not my immediate circle. So
like they have a new role in your life.
Yeah. And I think like, I never want to go through that again. Like it just felt uncomfortable and like, felt like almost guilty. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, should I maybe like go back to working my regular job and like just like live for the weekends and hang out? And I don't know, it was kind of a weird time for me.
It's really hard to, I very much relate. It's very hard to understand and realize what's happening in those situations. Like for me, the friendships were and I'm still friends with them. Again, just kind of redefining where my boundaries are and understanding what's happening when that's happening. But like, I definitely didn't notice what was happening for a long time. And I realized I did the exact same thing, made myself feel smaller and kind of downplay a lot of things. It is really important to either completely drop those people off or redefine how what you talk about with that person, or guard yourself a little bit more. But it is so good that, it's I feel a lot of entrepreneurs talk about how they are isolated. And I feel like that's something that people don't realize. It contributes to that feeling of isolation, is that people are pretending to root for you, but deep down not pretending, it's more like they're too insecure. They don't even believe it's possible for anyone, themselves or anyone else, right?
I think that's like a really good point. I mean, I was dating someone who literally told me he was from England and that in England they don't talk about work. And I was like, and then I believed him. I was like, okay, well, I like you, and I believe that, maybe in England you don't talk about work. And he just didn't want me to talk about my success because he was so insecure about his life and where he was with his work and professional life. It took me a while, but that was very damaging because I was like, I want to talk about it. It's part of my life, right?
Like belittling. Yeah. Like, it's just, you don't want that. It's the worst. And like, it's over time, like, I don't think you realize how damaging it is to you. And like the other thing too, like before, like I have people around me now where if I have like a really good day or I have a win, I'm like, hey, this is my win. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. This is my win. Versus like a year ago, I'd like go to take my phone out and I'm like, who can I text? I don't know who to text. Like, they're not going to be happy for me. And I feel like I'm bothering them. Like, it's just like so different when you have people who actually support you around you,
There was a post that kind of inspired me to talk to you, like to interview you, but it was about female founder assumptions on International Women's Day. You were talking about like how people are like, you own a business and like you're single. And I was just wondering, like, have you had relationships during this time? Like, have you experienced that kind of thing from men, or in the dating world, being like kind of weird about the fact that you're an entrepreneur? Or where did that kind of comment stem from?
I hate it too, because especially through LinkedIn, I get a lot of people who are interested in investing, right? Like, and they're usually like middle-aged men who have some extra money and like calling me sunshine and sweetheart and, like belittling things like that. And I'm like, okay, this is a very, like I had someone interested like a week ago and then they said, okay, here's my schedule, sunshine. And I'm like, immediately no.
Oh yeah.
Just stuff like that. Just like their language and stuff. Like I get that probably weekly from people. And
you are very hot. You're hot. Like that's the thing, is like you're a founder, you're hot, you're putting yourself out there, it's gonna happen. But that is so annoying.
Yeah. And I feel like I can't be taken seriously sometimes as much as I try to. And I don't know, I come off, and like I actually went to like there was like an expo or whatever, and there was like an after party thing, and this man came up to me and was talking to me, and he's like, you're very serious, you come across very serious, and then he was
like professional.
He was saying like very unprofessional stuff, just not so nice stuff. And I had this wall up, and I put that wall up for those reasons, because like if you're too friendly, it's taken as you're flirting or you want something, or and there's a very fine line. And then I went away in I think March by myself. I was just like, I'm just going to book a trip, go away by myself, bring my laptop, work from like the beach. And I bumped into this man and we were talking about what we do. And I was like, yeah, I own businesses. And he's like, huh? He was like 65 and he had his own businesses. And he's like, really? He's like, tell me more. And so I like told him, and he was just floored. He like couldn't believe it. And I was like, why is it so hard for a man to comprehend a woman owning a business and building a life for herself, and like being single too? Like that was another thing. Like they just expect you to be in relationships and depend on a
They're
man.
financing to fund your
Yeah.
probably,
So
right?
yeah, like it's just, or the other misconception too, I don't know if you get this, like, like you don't really pay yourself when you're an entrepreneur at the beginning, you hustle and you find ways to make money. People
Right.
assuming that I'm getting money from mommy and daddy, like stuff like that too. I got
Yeah.
messages this week and I'm like, why is it so hard for people to believe that I can, make a living on my own? And it's
Well, because not many people can. That's not that crazy. Like,
No, I
that's a
know.
hard thing to do. But like it's just trying to like bait and switch you. It's so gross. And I only had one instance like that where a guy invited me, like we had a talk and it was like through LinkedIn and a business meeting. And then he just like, it was a date to him, and that's so annoying. But yeah, that sounds like it sounds like something where they're almost like using it to like get you to be like excited that they are so impressed by you, but it's like it's so gross and comes across as so patronizing. Like it's just crazy. Yeah, women are getting funded more than men now.
We need to change the landscape a bit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We need more women in power for sure. I actually was interested to know about your lifting story because I know that's something that you're passionate about and it kind of inspired your product too, right? Like it's a big part of who you are. And you seem to also be getting a lot of comments around that too.
That was so like back in the day, I competed in bodybuilding and like went through a prep for that and dieted and lifted like 7 days a week for a year and a half. The other thing too, like this was before entrepreneurship, when I would go on dates or when I would meet guys and stuff, I'm like, yeah, like I'm kind of like into bodybuilding. It was like, oh, really? Like people were just like weird about that. And then like even a lot of like my female friends, like because there's like a big misconception. It's getting better now, but like women should be doing cardio and like Pilates and like on the treadmill and like the weight section is not a place for females, right? It's evolving and things are changing, especially with social media. Like even on TikTok, you see a lot of women now that are like just going and dominating like the free weight section, which I think is so awesome. I remember like going through my prep and getting like pretty ripped and stuff. And even my mom did make some comment and she's like, yeah, like you're looking strong. I'm like, like, I know you mean well, but like the way you said that doesn't really sound.
You look strong.
Yeah.
Oh
So, like there's nothing wrong with lifting weights as a woman. Like it needs to be normalized and it's getting there. But yeah, I would get some like really weird comments from people. And I'm like, yes, I'm a woman and I lift weights. And oftentimes when I went to the gym, there'd be very, very few women in the weight section. And I was very insecure at the time. So I would just put on my headphones, stare at the ground, like go up to it, like, just kind of be in my own world.
Seems like there's just it's so people do not realize the personal life challenges, like even aside from like the stress of owning a business, it's like the way you are perceived that can be so draining. Thank you for sharing all of this. I feel like it's very in line with your posts and your style of marketing and authentic growth with your company. I think this is why, so many people are rooting you on, and we're definitely rooting you on. We're so happy that you came in today to share with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Like you said, I don't think a lot of people are talking about this kind of thing, and we tend to focus and highlight just the good stuff. And I think there is so much more that we can learn from the bad stuff, because if we're only talking about the good stuff, there's no growth there. Like where we're having conversations about, okay, this was an issue that I had and this is how I fixed it, then there's more value in that, right? So thank you for joining us and chatting about that with us.
Hope it helps one person at least.
Oh yeah, you're gonna help a lot of people. Okay, we'll stay in touch.
For sure.
Okay,
Thank you so
bye.
Okay. Bye.
Two peas on a pod. Two peas on a podcast. Brought to you by the founders of Pivot and Pilot Creative.